So recently the Han Solo trailer came out, and a new Stormtrooper unit caught my eye. I didn't know what they were, so I did my research. They're called Mud Troopers. And then I just started shaking my head. So anyways, let's start with what we know. What is mud? Wet dirt. Just wet dirt. The Empire made an entire specialized force for freaking wet dirt. Sorry, just... Okay. Let's actually get into the review. So first off, the idea of mud specialization, or specialization in general. Generally, you train your infantry to handle certain tough environments, while maintaining specialized soldiers for a few areas. Modern day, you'll see alpine and mountain soldiers for mountain conditions, marines, and sometimes jungle forest and desert, depending on the time in history. The British in World War II had specialized soldiers trained for long-range desert patrols without support, and the modern German and Austrian armies had the Gebirgsjäger mountain troops, which are still in operation, and they're specifically trained to deal with mountains. Again, this is unique to the geography of those countries, and makes sense for them to want to have these specialized troops. However, generally in modern war, the United States and other nations, and Russia, China, etc., they all use, basically a standard form of infantry. They're trained for multiple environments, given standard equipment, and good training. However, they're not specialized for all those environments, and if they're going to be deployed to an area with specific geography, they're giving some training and special equipment. But let's look at the gear given to the Mud Troopers. The helmet seems to be an Imperial Army helmet. The Imperial Army being a group we haven't really seen, hopefully we'll see in the Han Solo movie, but from what we've gathered so far, only seems to really operate vehicles from what we've seen in canon. However, they do, or have played a bit more role in Legends. But this is just inefficient for the Empire, either way. So I just decided to take account just for fun of all the different helmets that are in canon. I'm probably missing a few, but there's the Standard Stormtrooper, the Scout Trooper, the Snow Trooper, the Shore Trooper, the Range Trooper, which is new, the Inferno Squad Trooper, the Imperial Army Trooper. There's the Imperial Army Trooper helmet with the face mask in Rebels. There's the Jump Trooper from Rebels. And, of course, there are the Royal Guards and even the Riot Troopers that we see, like the Royal Guards from Rebels. So, yeah, those are just the ones that we see in canon. And that's not going into Legends, which has more and more and more. On the other hand, Earth militaries usually have one or two infantry helmets for a reason. One for 90% of soldiers, and another which is used for special forces because the normal the normal helmet maybe is too big, not modular enough, maybe doesn't offer enough protection. But generally, it's just that is really the only example of where another helmet might be used. So we can see this during World War II with the Fallschirmjäger helmet, or just paratroopers in general during World War II. And today, the United States military and several others use the FAST helmet for special forces. The FAST helmet is very modular, so you can augment it for various situations. However, the Mud Trooper helmet doesn't seem to have any modular features. The only possible thing I see that maybe could be removed is the face mask, but I'll get to its problems in a second. Now, if these guys are considered special forces for operating in the mud, then their helmet is still poorly designed. The visor armor seems pointless, that silver stuff around the edge, and it seems like it's just for look alone. A very bad reason to do something, especially putting something shiny that would be very easy to perhaps reflect light, because that's a thing. So just making your guys more able to be spotted. They just seem poorly equipped in general. But yeah, it's just pointless. It's just there for look, and it's a liability in combat. And then there's the rebreather, which is completely unnecessary in mud. Mud stays on the ground, unless you throw it. But it's not going to get, blown around by the wind and obstruct line of sight or get in your lungs. Now, if they were sand troopers, this would make sense because you're operating an environment where you don't want to breathe a bunch of sand. But this problem doesn't, exist in a muddy environment. The mud stays on the ground. Unless, it's getting blown around. But you're not going to be inhaling that mud. The rifle, then, is also different. Again, like the helmets, many militaries do arm their special forces differently than the regular army, or allow like more freedom in choosing weapons, like the Navy SEALs in Vietnam. But again, this is not, these mud troopers aren't necessarily what I think are special forces. This is just equipment designed to deal with mud, again, which is common, and many modern rifles, while not meant to be submerged in mud, can usually handle a typical amount of mud and debris that would be picked up on the battlefield, at least decently enough so that way it can operate until the user can clean the rifle. But to be fair, I have seen pictures of mud troopers with a unique rifle. Again, this is really inefficient and poorly considered. And the Death Trooper version of the E11. The latter of which does, of course, make a lot more sense if they are considered special forces, or at least good enough or special enough to warrant, having a higher level of equipment. And yeah, the former I'm going to get into now because of the issue of standardization, which, of course, is vital when fighting a war. This is why all NATO nations use the same caliber of ammunition in their weapons, and establish standard identification for all member nations' militaries when it comes to assault. What's an assault rifle? What's a battle rifle? What's a machine gun? Etc. And this makes logistics a lot easier. It means if, say, an American and French force are operating nearby or together trying to defend a position, they can share ammunition. In this case, if a mud trooper and regular stormtroopers who are in close proximity, doesn't seem like they'd be able to share anything, not magazines, helmet repair parts, weaponry, etc. And this is how you lose wars. If you are producing so many different varieties that you can't industrially keep up with them, you're simply going to lose. Because while the Empire may have a massive military-industrial complex focused on producing equipment for its massive army, why would you bother setting up an extra line of armor, weapons, and other various equipment just to operate in mud? Again, which is very common on battlefields and anywhere in general. When you could just, have your armor prepared for a common weather condition. It's just ridiculous, completely inefficient. Start your conspiracy theories on the Imperial military-industrial complex fueling, creating these specializations just for profit and to keep jobs, blah, 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 I don't know. Anyways, all this just leads to the issue that the Empire simply just has too many unique units and specializations, and they make it over-specialized and inflexible. If you need mud troopers to operate on muddy planets, then, I don't know, what are the stormtroopers going to do? Or the shore troopers, or the aqua troopers, or the snow troopers? I could go on, but I think everyone gets a picture what to do if they encounter mud. Even if this is just an extra set of gear with no unique training, it still doesn't make any sense. If you're in a battle and it rains, mud is just so common. It's very different than, say, operating on extremely cold planets like Hoth, where you would need that special survival equipment. Water planets, like Mon Calamari, where, again, you're going to need, forces that are trained to operate in water, underwater combat. And, planets that are completely uninhabitable for other reasons, say, toxic gases, acid, rain, and rivers and such, or just no atmosphere. Like, those are examples where you need a special group of infantry in order to deal with them. But something as common as mud, like, what the heck? Anyways, it just makes a far more sense to have a well-trained and effective infantry force, I don't know, like what the stormtroopers are supposed to be, that can handle almost any environment, like what the stormtroopers are supposed to be, and supplemented with the gear for those extreme conditions, I don't know, like what the stormtroopers are supposed to be. So, yeah. That wraps up basically all my major points. Other things I don't like so for example, the cloak, I think it's just there to look cool, but it really doesn't make, I don't see why you'd need that. Unless it's like a poncho for the rain, in which case I get it, but you're still in a full body glove and armor, so it's not like you're in clothing that's going to absorb the rainwater. There's like the brown leather ammo pouch that's up on one of the guy's chest. I just keep it standard black like all the others, because now you're introducing a new color of leather just so it looks nice with your armor. I'm sorry, but fashion is not the most important consideration with, when it comes to military matters. And then there's just, of course, the simple fact that these guys exist. And I'm sorry, but it seems like there's just this problem at Disney, or at the character designers at Lucasfilm where they just want to design new stuff, whether that be for merchandising or just to look cool. But it ends up being a really confusing then when we don't see them, in Rebels, or we don't see them in, the original trilogy and such. So yeah, it just seems, odd that it's like, oh, let's introduce the Mud Trooper, and they're going to operate in the mud, but then we don't see him anywhere else. Anyways, thanks for watching this rant by myself, Horsey0538, here on Couch Commander. Anyways, have a good night, and yeah, good day to everyone.